Hey, what's up? Dave with Brazos Barbell. I wanted to make a quick video today on an assistance deadlift exercise that I've been using a whole lot for both sumo and conventional, and that's the block deadlift. I mentioned this one in both the videos that I made on variations that you can use to benefit your conventional and sumo deadlifts, but I've been using this one a whole lot more, and I wanted to make a video elaborating on some of the reasons that I would use it, the differences, why I would use it for conventional pullers and sumo pullers, and then some of the body types that it might actually fit best for. So first of all, I think it can help in different ways for both the lifts, the sumo and the conventional, but I think in the end it comes down to back strength. And I talked about that in the other videos, but I'm gonna elaborate here a little bit more. So we'll start with sumo. And the videos that I'm gonna be showing today are on one of my clients named AJ. So AJ is a very, very strong squatter. He's a very strong bencher. He's squatted over 700 pounds and he's benched well over 500. But deadlift is something that doesn't fit his body type very well. There's many people that fall into this category, and I think a lot of times people spend hours and hours struggling away trying to pull the bar off the floor in a position that just doesn't really fit them well, especially in the context of normal training. So obviously we're powerlifters, we have to pull the bar from the floor, but under normal circumstances, that may not be something that is consistently trainable for you. So with AJ, we were struggling getting his deadlift to get stronger. There were many occasions in which he was just having very inconsistent training when we were pulling from the floor more often. So we tried things like dropping volume. We tried things like dropping back on how many times per week we were doing it without really much progress. So for AJ, we started pulling off the blocks a little bit more. And at this point, AJ does almost all of his pulling from the blocks. So AJ has really short arms. He has a little bit trouble getting into that bottom position, but he can do it pretty well off the blocks. That little 1.5 inch block makes a really big difference for the consistency of his technique. So through better consistency, through better training throughout the course of blocks and months and years, AJ has been able to add a whole lot of progress to his deadlift that he may not have been able to do otherwise, and would struggle with some training that would probably affect his squatting more than he would like because of the added stress from pulling from the floor all the time. So I think a lot of times we're probably too narrow-minded in the selections that we're choosing. Things like board pressing for bench press isn't one that's very common. I don't use it a whole lot either for a lot of my athletes, but I've started including some of a small board or like even a squat sponge on the bench press to train people who it seems like the triceps or the upper end of the bench press is a limitation for them. And I think we can put that in the same category for these deadlifts, where if they're struggling to get in the appropriate amount of work that we think that is needed to progress, then if we can make the exercise a little bit easier and a little bit more trainable, then this is something that should be able to really transfer into more pounds on the platform. So for AJ, it's been really successful. He's not the only one that I do this with, but people who, in sumo pullers, who struggle to get into a consistently good position, whether it's body type or whatever, or people who really struggle with their backs breaking right off the floor, is somebody that I think the small block deadlift is going to be very valuable for as well. So I guess there's the argument with that people are saying if your back is failing off the floor, then we should train that position more. I generally agree with that, but I think we can do a mixture of things. So my issue with only training deadlifts off the floor, if that's where the position is hard, is that may just be too much stress that we're kind of not accounting for, that we could be able to train with slightly higher volumes or get in a little bit more quality of work by giving the exercise a little bit more ability to actually be performed well. So even if you get into pretty good positions, but your back is just breaking off the floor every single time, I think something like adding the small block deadlift as a secondary deadlift day after squatting or something like that for some rep work, I think is a really valuable tool. I do this for conventional deadlifters as well. Most of the time, conventional deadlifters don't generally struggle off the floor, but they struggle at the top end of their movement. So I have Jose here pulling some of his heavier singles at the end of the week. I'm doing this with lower volume work. I think for the most part, the biggest difference between how I program for sumo with the blocks and conventional off the blocks is the level of reps. I generally will give conventional deadlifters fewer reps off the blocks, And a lot of that is going to be the amount of work that their back is taking already from general pulling. So if we're having a primary deadlift day earlier in the week that is a little bit higher stress, I'll do a lower volume workout later in the week off of the blocks. That tends to be something that people can manage pretty well, but it gives them a little bit more exposure to what that right off the floor, kind of the mid-range where they're really going to be grinding. That's a tough thing to train all the time without adding a lot of soreness, a lot of stress throughout the rest of the block, and again, affecting squatting. So I think the block deadlift is underutilized for pretty much everybody. I think there's a lot of good reasons to include it, whether it's just more consistent position, a little bit higher training quality with a little bit lower demand on your back. I think a lot of these things can show up very quickly as far as extra pounds on a platform and just increased deadlift progress. So my recommendation generally is to include it as rep work or as a secondary deadlift day, but make sure that you're doing it in a way that complements your normal deadlift. So hopefully that video was helpful. If you like it, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.